Okay, chat. Well, the plan today, I was going to finally make my Warlock movement guide. The lower mobility you have, the closer you'll stay to the ground, aka the more you can accelerate. So that is a total preference thing on how much hang time you want. Because mobility literally is a direct correlation between like your player and how high you go in the air when you jump. So that's really your preference. Play around with it. I play on 3 most of the time. Transversal steps are not required, but are recommended just because they're a really good movement exotic, and the whole reloading thing is really nice. Well, let's start this off. This is a Titan skating macro slash like a ricochet Warlock bounce macro. It's the same thing. I use a Logitech mouse, as you can see. I have it bound to one of my side buttons here. You can make macros on a lot of different programs nowadays, but this is the one that I use in the Logitech software. Repeat while holding, space down, 25 millisecond delay, space up. That's the skate macro in a nutshell, and I'll show you exactly what that does here in a second. This is on burst glide. I should have started at the basics. Or top tree down blade, you guys, because that's what you scoot on. So as you can see, it literally just smashes the space bar really, really fast. So when you single jump upwards like that, the point in which you want to start hitting the macro is as soon as you start to go down. Like right here. Right here is where you want to do it. Because you're bouncing off the ground like a bouncy ball and propelling yourself forward is essentially what you're trying to do. I'm not going to sit here and try to draw a Warlock because I'm not a paint master. I'm not a Picasso by any means. Go to the apex of your jump, and as soon as you start coming down, you're just trying to smash the floor as fast as possible. When you hit that macro going downwards, it's going to eat all your jumps and you're just going vroom! Like if you slow it down, you can definitely like visually see the propellant or the propeller, you can see yourself going forward faster! And that is how you ricochet bounce on Warlock. We'll get into the Titan skating one in like another short tutorial. Walking around movement, you can do that. It's also good if you're trying to not lose any height while you're heat rising. You do lose a little bit of height, but you can do that. So now we're getting a little bit more advanced. This is where you learn the basics of the final movement, which is this. The sword skate Icarus dash. We'll just call it that. So first, we need to learn the regular Icarus dash, okay? Icarus dashing is really simple. When I say jump, it's when you hit your glide here. That's what I mean. I'm not talking about the first single jump here where you're just getting your feet off the ground. When you're running forward, when you get in the air, jump dash. You hit dash right after you activate your burst glide. And that's what allows you to go forward. If there's some sort of like game code that like accelerates your movement a lot faster than you're technically supposed to, because if you just jump and dash, it doesn't carry your momentum at all. But when you pair those two together, and it has to be in that order, jump dash, you go forward. And then you can start incorporating things like sword swings to increase your hang time and your swing distance. So to do this lament trick in particular, the way that I do it, what I'm doing is as soon as I press sword swing, you're doing what's called a buffered input. So as soon as you swing your sword, you're tapping to your energy. So as soon as the game is done with the sword swing animation, it will automatically pull out whatever weapon you swap to. So you could do that with energy or primary. As soon as the game is done with the sword animation is when you want to time your Icarus dash, so that way you can carry your momentum out of the sword swing. So when you're pairing that together, you're doing sword swing, weapon swap, but again, the weapon swap is as soon as you swing your sword, and then you're Icarus dashing, the one that we learned earlier, the space dash. When you pair that all together, that's what it looks like. Keep your feet on the ground, or keep your feet off the ground is the objective, to carry momentum. Then incorporating things like the macro to help you go faster. You don't have to do the sword swing tech. It's totally up to you. Yes, you can do it with any sword. Yes, you can do this on console before anybody asks. First, start with just being able to consistently do the Icarus dash. If you can't carry movement here, you're gonna have a hard time with the sword thing. You can do scroll wheel as well. That is an option. Yeah. It does not work without sword ammo. It does not work without sword ammo, because sword ammo is the only thing that propels you forward. Here, I'll show you. You see, it literally just eats all the momentum. Another good thing to explain is if you use that macro on like incline planes on Warlock, sometimes you can get some crazy speed accelerants. You can just like ricochet bounce up this. A lot of Warlock movement is just plotting out like where you're gonna land and where you're gonna jump and where you're gonna dash. So you don't hit your head and just chain movement together. It's actually kind of an art. So I might get roasted into the ground for saying that, but that's another thing you can add to this is if you Sparrow Launch and then add an Icarus dash on top of that, bro, you literally just... Bro, it's insane. This is something that you don't use a lot, but you might have seen this in PvP. There is one other way to kind of scoot, but on bottom tree, but this only works in your super. You have to have Strafe Glide on, and you have to have your super. It's just double tapping your jump at the right time. That's all it is. It's pretty self-explanatory there. I don't think there's anything else I need to say. It's just, you just continually propel yourself, and it doesn't really work like super well to build up a ton of speed unless you're like on more of an like a flat or inclined, slightly inclined plane. A weird trick on Warlock is anytime there's a slope that is, I don't know what the exact angle is, but it has to be inclined upwards. Whether the slope is like this or it's like this. As long as it's not straight up and down, you can heat rise up the wall by literally just holding forward, which I'll show here in a second. So when you hold forward, it's gonna accelerate speed and you're just gonna go straight up. When you hold back, you're gonna start shooting straight up in the air. So I'm gonna pop heat rises here. And now I'm going to hold back or just let go. You can do a cool little trick to impress your friends, or you can use it to maybe abuse some out of bounds spots. There's a lot of possibilities with it as to what it could be useful for, but it is definitely a good trick to keep in your pocket. It is very, very simple. Yes, again, it does work on controller, it works on console. All the tricks are not platform exclusive. Yeah, another great example is it works in Prophecy. So essentially what Sparrow Launching is getting off your Sparrow and turning it and dodging into yourself. Essentially, the Sparrow is a baseball bat and you are the baseball. When you get off, you want to dodge into yourself like that. You want to do it while you're moving and it'll look something like this. If you almost die by your Sparrow, that's how you know you're basically getting like the best launch possible. There's like a certain frame where if you Sparrow launch yourself, you just die by your Sparrow, and then a couple frames later, you just don't take any damage. You can pair that with your Icarus dash that you learn, but you can also use it on Well. Middle tree Well, Healing Grenade can also be used as a flotation device. It allows you to literally float in the air for an obnoxious amount of time. And yes, you can do it while moving too. But like if you're in a jumping puzzle and you have an oh shit moment, you can kind of just float and hold forward. When you press sprint, it'll cancel your nade holding, and then you can go back to falling. When you pair that with the Sparrow launch that you learned as well, hit the ground and get yourself a nice little distance. So this is where things get a little bit more complicated. This is stuff that you're probably not going to use that much. If you want to use it to impress your friends, cool. The Well Wordline skate, you have to have your temporal sprint on the left, and it only works when you're going off an edge. It doesn't matter how small it is. You could do it on something like this. It's going to be a little bit harder. But when you hit your heavy attack, you're going to hit jump and then super. Literally like a frame afterwards in that order. So you're going to hit heavy attack, jump, super. And then you can hold your nade. Ledge size does matter. Yeah, as long as it's a decent sized ledge, like that should work. Another pro tip is if you're trying to build up on like a small ledge, you can kind of like, if you're on keyboard mouse, this might be a little bit harder on controller. You can kind of whip your mouse around if you jump in place, you can actually build up your temporal. You don't like really have to be moving. So you see, when you have teammates close, you get Electrostatic Surge. It's a bottom tree Warlock, by the way. When you literally just walk, you go faster than sprinting. You literally just zoom at 1,000,000 miles an hour. I'm not holding sprint, I'm just walking. You can go up to ×3. So you literally just fly. That's the only thing that's really useful on the Stormcaller tree that I can think of. Yeah, there's balls in Astral that function the same way. If you can't sprint with a relic, there's a good chance that this will work. The Electrostatic Surge on everything. All right, well, I hope that basic Warlock guide movement thing was useful. There's a little bit of advanced tech in there. There's a lot of one-off tricks of Warlock that I didn't explain in this video, which is totally fine. I might make like little snippets of that for like YouTube shorts or TikToks or something, so make sure you guys are up to date with all the socials. Hit the sub button, all that stuff. Come check us out on Twitch. Might be streaming right now, who knows? Thanks for watching, and I hope this was helpful.